In this video, what we're going to be talking about is how to end suffering, or at least how to lower the amount of suffering that is going on in our lives. Because a lot of the suffering that we deal with really does come from the unconscious attention that we're keeping in the thinking mind without even realizing that we're doing this. Because when you keep your attention and focus in the thinking mind unconsciously, this creates a lot of impatience, agitation, pain, suffering, dis-ease, where you don't necessarily feel connected to the moment, but you're projecting into the future, into the past, about things that haven't happened yet. And when you're living your life from this place, this creates a lot more suffering than really necessary, because you tend to blow situations out of proportion and misperceive the situation, and you tend to react to things, and we tend to be automatically living in autopilot. And here's the thing though, is that when I learned how to step out of my mind, this removed a lot of the suffering into my life, because I realized that the suffering really did come from the mental resistance to the situation. It wasn't actually the situation, it was actually my mental resistance reacting to the situation. Because if you learn how to deal with the mental resistance, then the situation becomes a lot easier to deal with, because the situation is happening. But then how does your mind react to the situation is the real question. And that's what the ego loves to do, is create all these problems in the mind that aren't really necessarily problems in the moment, but it creates those problems in a sense. And I'm not saying that there isn't problems in life. I'm saying that the mind likes to add, it's almost like it likes to add fuel to the issue and make it a lot worse than it really is. Because why is it that one person handles something one way and another person handles it another way? Because one person adds more energy to the problem than the other person. And where does that come from? It comes from the mental resistance that they are creating, and how much mental resistance do you have? And so when I learned how to observe my thoughts rather than be attached to my thoughts in meditation 3 years ago, I started doing this every single day. I would learn how to focus on my breathing, connect deeply into the moment using certain techniques. By connecting to the moment and observing my thoughts, I would start to realize that my mental resistance to the situation was actually creating most of the suffering to the situation. It wasn't that the suffering was happening because of the physical pain that I was dealing with or the external life situation. It was actually my mental resistance to the situation. Okay, I'm going to say that one more time. It's not the situation that creates the suffering. It's the mental resistance to the situation that creates the suffering. Even physical pain. Because the physical pain that you're dealing with is just pain. But do you have to suffer through that pain is the question. This one is where it gets a little bit more debatable. But when you find that peace and the deepness and the aliveness of the moment, what you'll find is that the mind likes to project into the future and project into the past. And it likes to almost create all these issues that aren't happening in the moment, but it likes to project itself and think about all these worst case scenarios, thinking that it's going to make it better. But the reality is that you thinking about those worst case scenarios is not helping you prepare for that situation a lot of times. It's actually creating a lot of anxiety, and the best way to deal with that situation would actually be to deal with it in that moment while it's happening, and not thinking about it is actually creating a lot more suffering than necessary. And so really the core foundation of suffering is being stuck in your head without even realizing it. Some people call this the ego. When you're stuck in your head unconsciously, when you're absorbed into thought processes unconsciously, that creates a lot of suffering, that creates a lot of projections into the future. That makes, like, when I'm talking about physical pain, that's the one that's a little bit more debatable. But the thing I'm trying to say is that if there's physical pain going on, are you going to make it worse by complaining about it internally in your mind? Because when you do something like that, you're almost adding energy to the fire versus just coming into full acceptance. And when you fully accept the situation, it actually creates more room to change the situation, because you're in full acceptance. When you're in full acceptance, that creates the most room for change, even for physical pain. And so when you learn how to enter the present moment and find that beauty and that peace and that aliveness that is always there, we may just not realize it because we're caught up in the thinking that's when your suffering will begin to lower and begin to decrease in your life. And the suffering that you're dealing with won't necessarily be impacting you as much, because the mental resistance to the situation, to the pain, will not be affecting you as much as it was. The more that you connect to this deepness and this aliveness that is always there, we just may not realize it. So, the sensation of your breathing. When you're in the midst of suffering, are you even aware that you're breathing in that moment? We tend to forget about our breath when we're caught up in the thinking, worrying about the past and the future, creating suffering in the situation. Are you even aware of your breathing? Are you even aware of what you're hearing? This takes an alertness. This takes a sense of being very alert and present to the moment, which may be hard in the midst of suffering. But are you able to notice, it's almost like a little game. Can you bring your focus and awareness to the sensation of your breathing? Can you start to notice the feelings in your body? These things were always there, by the way. We just may not realize it when we're in the midst of being caught up in the past and the future unconsciously. In other words, the ego. Some people call that the ego. It's just a symbol to represent being unconsciously absorbed in the thinking. So that's all I have for you today. If you like this kind of content, then consider hitting that subscribe button and that notification bell, because I post a video every single day. And you have to hit that notification bell because that's the only way to see the videos that I post every single day. If you want to go deeper into the present moment, find this peace and find this aliveness that we always have, and get out of stop being so absorbed in the content of our minds, and just connect to the peace and the aliveness and the beauty of the moment that is always there, then consider applying for a free consultation that is in the website that is in the description box below of this video. Have yourself a great day, and see you in the next video.